Incense burning, all space is filled with the fragrance. All Buddhas smell it from afar. Auspicious clouds gather everywhere. With utmost sincerity, all Buddhas appear. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage, we offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas.
Venerable is in Colorado. And since this is such a small group, I'm going to change it up a little bit and invite us to be all part of the Dharma talk instead of just me talking at you. So before we get started, I'd like to open up with a sit. And with that sit, with a meditation, how many people do we have online right now? Okay. So let's begin with a quiet, comfortable, relaxed sit. And we'll begin today with a contemplation of impermanence. So just settle in, bring yourself to this Dharma hall today. Slowly and carefully contemplate that all conditional phenomena are like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, a shadow, morning dew, or a flash of lightning. All sentient beings will definitely die. All inanimate things will definitely perish. This principle also applies to my body, which is composed of the four great elements. One should reflect upon the fact that one will have to be separated from one's family and friends one day. That time is pushing one's age forward, and that early youth is followed by the robust years of life, which is followed by old age, which is followed by death. One should contemplate how sounds or how flowing water never return after they are gone. One should contemplate how the thoughts and words of this very moment have already become impermanent. One should contemplate how one will come closer and closer to death, how death has no set time to it, how one could go to the next world at any moment simply because one's breathing stops, and how one can take no worldly possessions whatsoever with you to the next world. One should contemplate how these principles apply to one's very own body. So this Friday, I start my retreat on aging, illness, and death. Working. How's that? You can't hear it. Now, can you hear it now? Can you hear me now? So this Friday starts a retreat that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and just COVID got in the way, and life got in the way, and moving got in the way, because all those things are impermanent, right? They come and they go. And so I landed on next weekend. And I realized, although I've read about birth, aging, illness, and death, and it's part of, I mean, that's where the Buddha started, right? I mean, that's what got him going into his spiritual journey. But what do we really know about that, really? Unless we've spent time from birth to this very moment, really looking at aging, illness, and death. Fact is, we get sick. We just went through 4 years of people getting sick and dying. And we were aware of that, but how many of us here really thought, wow, there's a lot of people dying? And in particular, really connected it to ourselves. What about me? Short of, this could be me, I could get COVID and I could die, or I could get cancer and I could die. In the last 6 months, I've had a number of friends who have gotten cancer. My awareness has been heightened, but I don't know that I truly have spent time with that. And with that being aging, illness, and death comes impermanence. So I decided, as I'm reading lots of material, learning a lot, concentrating, focusing, discerning. I thought, wow, this is so far beyond. I mean, I do the prayogas. I started with the prayogas when I got my yidam. And in fact, I shared this, probably 3 months at a minimum just doing the prayogas. Didn't even get into my yidam practice. Because I felt like I really wanted to ground it in it. And after about that length of time, maybe a little bit longer, I stepped out and the world looked differently because of that. I was more aware, I thought. I could tell you what the prayogas were. I still practice them every day. But I don't think I really, truly, in my marrow, understood impermanence. Really, viscerally understood. So today I'm going to ask us, I was going to ask us anyhow, but because we're a smaller group, it's going to be much easier to really reflect, or to be a day of reflection. Several opportunities for silence to reflect, to be with. And just, I'm asking you to not put aside, but just know that wherever you are with understanding impermanence, that's where you are. And just see if anything we talk about, experience, might move the dial just a wee bit more. If not, great. But I will almost guarantee that we aren't there in understanding impermanence. There meaning when we die, to really be ready for that moment, to have prepared for that moment, to be present at that moment. I'll ask us to look at how we've been cultivating impermanence. What does that look like? If you're willing to share, that would be great, because what you share offers the rest of us an opportunity to consider and reflect as well. If you can enter into this space today with a not knowing mind, with an open heart, and see what's there. And I can tell you, for the most part, this topic, I put a minimum of 25. We've now got 15 people signed up. It's not something that people run to necessarily, unless they're right there. I went to a workshop with John Orr last fall, and there were probably 50 people there. Maybe it was because of him, the location, but there was a vast array of people from probably, I think someone said they were 93, all the way down to 27. And I thought, how courageous that someone at 27 is open and willing to look at this topic. Because it doesn't just happen. Aging just doesn't happen. When you hit that decade that says 60 or 70 or 50 even. It happens from the moment we are birthed to the moment that we leave this body. And although I'm not going to get into my retreat for next week, although I probably could, because most of the people that are coming aren't here, I just want us to take some time and experience this for the next hour. So I'm going to invite you just to sit back. One more time, take in a deep breath, real deep. Hold it and let it go. That was your last breath. That was your last breath. Imagine, be with, connect with what that truly means for you. What comes up for you? What's left unfinished? Is that closet cleaned out yet? Is it left for other people to take care of? It's that impermanence, that last breath. Whether it's here right now or another time. We don't know when. The Buddha taught that nothing in the universe, nothing is essential. Take that in. Nothing is essential. Not the beautiful flowers we're planting at the monastery. Not that really good coffee we have or don't have. That fine food that we eat or don't eat. Nothing is essential. The Buddha taught that everything that comes also goes. Everything. I love my car out there. It was dubbed blue when we were still at Heartwood. People still ask me, how's Blue doing? I love that car. Brought me all the way from Oregon to here. Occasionally I think, I got in 2016, maybe it's time to get a new car. Why? 8 years old. 60,000 miles on it. My father was sitting here, he'd say, no need. Everything that comes also goes. Everything that lives must die. All that work, putting in the flowers, cleaning up the beds, digging, putting in, they will die. Those plants will die. Now, if we care for them, they will maybe last their annuals. Maybe they'll come back. Perennials. Or is annuals the other way around? Thanks. So, but either way, whether they're annuals or perennials, we don't know. We don't know. The Buddha taught that everything that is created will crumble. Everything. I invite you to go to where you live and check it out. Everything that's there. Everything. The nature of impermanence. Another word for impermanence is change. Change. A long time ago, I heard the only one that really likes change is a baby. Isn't that funny? Change is hard. I often struggle with transitions, even from a weekend. I go to my brother's, which is really the only place I've been going lately, and don't go very often. And going there is a transition, coming back is a transition. Partly because they live very different than I do. I love them dearly. Partly because that might be the last time I see them. I truly think of that. This could be it. Partly because it's a 2-hour drive and I can feel that difference going from a big town, Knoxville, to here. Change. That visit, the last time I had one, is impermanent. It's gone. The conversations I have with my brother, which they used to average almost daily, but now they're once or twice a week, which is quite nice. Gone. Gone. He is my only living immediate family now, his family. The rest are gone. My nephew, my niece, my aunts and uncles, a lot of them are still in Wisconsin, but many of them are gone now. The nature of impermanence. Nothing is free from the constant flow. Impermanence. Impermanence is one of the 3 marks of existence. Anicca, which is impermanence. Dukkha, suffering. Anatta, no self. 3 marks or universal characteristics. And knowing these gives us an opportunity to gain insight into the true nature of reality. Excuse me. My voice is impermanent. Which is true. The longer I talk, the worse it gets. It's not an aging thing either. It's an illness thing. So there you go. And it didn't just happen when I hit the 60s decade. It was happening way before that. It's getting progressively worse. Impermanent. It's hard for me to just land on that. Oh, am I not getting this fixed? I want it fixed. I don't know. So going back, anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Impermanence, suffering, and no self. No self meaning nothing solid. Nothing solid. It helps us to develop more skillfulness in our understanding. How much attention do we pay to those three marks? I know we probably all heard of them. How much do we really engage with them, understand them, be with them, see them when they surface? We've talked about the 8 worldly winds, you know, how the weather changes, how the events change in our life, how emotions come and go. The 8 worldly winds offers a guide to not get caught up in one way or the other. This is good, this is not good. I want the good, I don't want the not good. Both clinging or grasping, not going to help us, create suffering. The Buddha has told us not to get caught up into emotions. How's that working for you? As Deepa would say, don't get caught up into emotions. Do you even know when you're caught up in emotions? How do you know? When you're, as Aya Sada would say, blah, 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 when it's coming out, how do you know? And I've said this often, anger, frustration, sadness, all those emotions are rarely, if ever, the first emotion. There's something turning inside us that begins, and we're not necessarily paying attention to it. So he says, don't pay attention, don't get stuck in those emotions, but look at what's taking place. When you feel the heat, if you feel heat, one of the 4 elements certainly arises for me. When you feel that, what's taking place? I often ask, what's this? Before, hopefully, most times before I say anything. Sometimes my face gives me away, but I often try not to say anything and take a breath and be with it until I have a clear understanding and I can do right speech and right action. So I'm asking us to reflect. Reflect on what the Buddha has asked us to pay attention to. Do not get caught up in emotions of the moment, and look closely at what is taking place. And see if possibly impermanence can be part of the experience. Anything coming up? What are you noticing? When was the last time you experienced an emotion that wasn't controlled? And control doesn't mean that you blow up and carry on, but that maybe after it's done, you thought, you know, sort of like that email that you don't want to send and somehow that it got sent. And how many of us tried to go through that screen to get it back? Same thing. The floor is open also to the people online.
So last week I came in and some of my dear Sangha friend members texted me or checked in on me. And I had mentioned that I knew that there was a chance it was going to be a pretty tumultuous occurrence coming for me, very specifically related. And we got to punt on part of it. But what was really beautiful is how I recognize I have a propensity of that initial gut reaction is fear. I live in that hungry ghost, feed my fear hell realm. Often, if I'm going to go there, and the other ancillary things that happen around fear go back to the vulnerability and the wanting to make it better. But in my world of trying to make anything better, I tend to make it worse because I want to just please and get out of it. Specifically around this situation, I was able to feel the 8 worldly winds. I could feel it. I'm not an anger person. I didn't feel anger. I just felt this. And we had talked about some of this, Suka and I. And what came of it was this shift. And I could physically feel the change. I physically felt a breeze, no air conditioning, no nothing. But what was able to shift for me is that this person and this situation, like all things, but specifically this is a gift. And having a sense of gratitude for the impermanence of that fear and to be able to look at this situation differently. I had to meet this person. This person had to meet me. This is all cause and condition that started long before time I could relate to. And to look at it from a karmatic experience of this is my opportunity to overcome something that I desperately need to work through so that I can be a better person. And this person at the same time needs to engage in this experience with me. And that was the not self right there, the not self. This is not me. This is not mine. This is not just about my space in this. It was very empowering to shift it to say, perspective. This is an opportunity for both of us to go through something that's equally as difficult for you in a different dimension than it is for me. And if we don't do this now, in this moment, it's either going to come around again in this lifetime or another one, because I'll continue to ignore it. And to have gratitude that I am in a space that I recognize this has probably come around for me over and over and over to get me here. And I ignored those or ran away from them, which got me to where I was. And to recognize at that moment, not just this isn't me, but the impermanence. This is going to happen. This is the situation. And then life is going, no one's going to die in this meeting. I mean, someone may die in this meeting, but like that is not because of the meeting, that just somebody died in the meeting. But just to realize the beauty of the bigness in the smallness and to shift the mind to this is our karma. And this is such a grand opportunity for us to, all beings, but me in particular, and this situation to allow me to not self my way. And then truly be, that would be a benefit to me. That could be a benefit to the other person. And in that way, drop by drop, we're benefiting all beings because I'm no longer going to bring my karma, my engaged energy to a situation and other people. And just to be like that little mosquito-y thing that walks across the water with a minor ripple. But it did involve the not self and the impermanence and the 8 worldly winds. And it was a beautiful place to kind of hold. Because at the end of the day, when I take my last breath, I'm not going to care about this.
Thank you. Others?
Well, that was so wonderful. This seems quite bright by comparison. But when you said, oh, yeah, don't do that, Reba, that's what that meant.
Why is that?
Because I just always try to apologize for being lesser.
Okay. Yeah, I think what we're trying to get at here is whatever comes up is what's coming up. Not great, not terrible, not good, not bad. This is what the very thing, thank you for bringing that up. It's the very thing that we're getting at. Because we can't get beyond the line if we minimize it or diffuse it somehow so that it's something you don't really look at because it's not important enough.
And this is really just something that came up when you said that about when's the last time you had an emotion that you couldn't control, that you didn't like, that you looked back on and said, well, I have a lot of those, as you know, but last week in the hospital, when I was sitting with a sick friend, I guess what came to me was even those emotions that you don't act on because you're still sorry you had them. Like I would get so impatient and internally I was going, oh my God, would you just, and then I was so ashamed of that emotion, but it came up and thank God it was impermanent. But I guess that's what I wanted to say, that they do come up, and even if you don't act on them, notice realizing the impermanence and the passing away of them was helpful.
So you were able to get to that.
Yeah.
Say this is gonna pass.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh. Is that new?
It's definitely growing.
Okay.
And that has everything to do with, my living situation and the example that you guys are constantly putting forward, the example that you're putting forward and the lessons that I'm constantly getting.
I think that is a critical piece to our growth, is that we notice when the dial is starting to move. It's, maybe the temperature gauge, but we catch it. Even if, our three kayas, body, speech, and thought, even if we're up here thinking about it, I don't quite get to that speech and I don't get to that action. And we're catching it sooner, recognizing it sooner. Habitual tendencies, getting it closer and closer to where it starts. Recognizing as it begins to bubble before it really bubbles, before it overflows. It's like the pot of water that you turn on to boil. And depending on what's in it, if it's pasta, it's going to bubble up, and then what? Right? If you don't catch it, it just goes, and it goes all over the oven, and then you got a bigger mess to clean up, and right? Just like that. And so we get to these moments, whatever they are for you, and you get to whatever's going to help intervene. Stop that dial from moving. Turn that heat down. Oh, I got to turn the heat down now. This is that point. The more familiar you become with it, the more you understand the impermanence. Whether you go big or not, it's going to go away. And whether you have to clean up the oven or clean up the mess on aisle 4 or whatever it is, it will eventually go away. And what's left to pick up, to deal with, is up to us. Is up to us. Knowing that we're going to go into a meeting, what am I going to do? Do the threshold moment before you go in. Really planning, practicing, engaging with that thought before it even happens. Others.
I'm a lot closer to death than some. But I anticipate a long time before it comes. But who knows? In my long years, I have lost all my relatives. I have none. I've lost a daughter. I've lost a son. I've lost 4 husbands, one to death. I have moved over 60 times. I was born a Gemini, and Geminis love change. In fact, as I count my moves over my 86 years, I move on the average of every 3 years. I'm in my present home 6 years. Oops. And I feel that. In our barn are some boxes that hold lifelong memories, the graduation card from kindergarten, and all the pictures of my children, and all the things that we did in our lifetime. And I told David a few months ago, the next time you come across those boxes, which are way up in the rafters, burn them. I don't want to look at them. The memories are gone. The history is gone. Why do I want to recreate something about something that's gone? I have the good fortune to have been trained as a past life therapist, and therefore I have experienced my own death several times. I have experienced and shared in the deaths of clients. And in my work through disasters, I'm very comfortable. In my work with hospice, I'm very comfortable with death. I've studied the books on Bardo. And I think, oh boy, I wish I could go through it I would like, but that's a challenge. I like the fact that Pema Chodron wrote a book that said, practice the Bardo every day. Practice the letting go, the impermanence, and the process every day so that when you reach your death, you're practiced on how to go through it. So I'm kind of looking forward to it, whether I do it the way perfectly or terribly. That's all right. It's a game. It's another change. It's another Gemini experience. I've thought about, would I get to the Pure Land? Probably not. Which means another life. What would I like that life to be? And I've thought of several lives. I thought about the person that I am now. This personality will be completely gone. And I know what I would like to be and do in my next life. Now, whether I'm creating it and whether that'll happen, who knows? And by the time I die, I'll be different. So that may be different. That idea may be different. But I find that the good fortune that I've had in my life with all that is past is that I'm very comfortable with impermanence. I'm very comfortable. And I think about my house burned down, all my clothes. So what? I enjoy them, but they're just clothes. The house. We have insurance. I won't be living in a cave. If something happens to our dogs, I've had pets before. I understand that. If something happens to my husband before me, I've lived alone for many, many years during my lifetime. I really think I understand impermanence. And there's a negative side to understanding that. And that is that I don't show a lot of compassionate emotions when other people say, I've lost this, or I'm losing that, or that's gone. They're feeling wherever they are, sadness, grief, worry. And I'm more in this place of, okay, that's the way it is. So I feel like I have compassion because I've experienced the grief of losing my daughter, other people. But it doesn't tear me up. It doesn't destroy me. I experience it, I feel it. If this person loses something, I feel compassion for them, but the compassion is not a feeling that destroys me. I don't know how to explain that.
Do you feel like those kinds of experiences, it's not tearing me up and it's not nothing? That you can see where you are in between.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's my story.
This question is actually for Suka. Do you feel that, don't you feel that you got there through your practice, through your immersion in these studies in the Dharma?
While I didn't officially take vows until 5 years ago, I think I have been consciously living the Dharma all my life because I was always religious. I went through many different religions and studying all the religions, and so the truths of all of them are true in all of them. The Buddha's teachings are in all the religions, they're just not complete. So I feel like I've been practicing from the time I was little. When I was a senior in high school, my mother didn't go to church. I went to Luther League, which is a summer camp, Lutheran. I came home, I told my mother she was going to hell because she didn't go to church. That didn't go over very well. But that's how bad I was.
So I guess I would just share that, we all come in with something to work on. And that probably not just one thing. And that we, over time, become more aware of what that something is. And so I would invite us all to look at, where we are in that dial. How aware, what does being aware of impermanence or knowing impermanence, what does that really mean for you and you and you and you? What does that really mean? And what coming in, what do you carry with that's left there? And have you uncovered that? Have you uncovered that? Bonnie.
For me, I think what is coming up is when I first pulled into here, I went to check the door because last time I stayed outside and everybody was inside, and I thought like I would see someone unlock the door. So I was like, oh, maybe it's not going on today. Yeah, and so I went to the cafe and got a coffee and was just going to sit for a little while. And then someone who came in who I felt attraction, like the human attraction that we all feel. And me sitting with my coffee and just like thinking about human attraction and the journey of trying to understand this part of myself, and being like, well, when's it going to happen? How old am I? Like all those questions, like how old am I? Like, will I always be single? Will I always all like these very basic things? And then, just and then just like with the topic that you're talking about, permanence, and just I guess like in my head while I was sitting here, it's like you know, this feeling of sometimes loneliness that I feel and I'm sensing in myself is something that has always seemed to be something that I try to navigate and try to understand from a place of like human connection. And then kind of like I thought to myself, well, you know, he must be lonely too. And I should have compassion for that in my head. But like trying to like navigate that, but just kind of sitting with this idea of like human attraction and what's my relationship in this because it's such a basic part of what makes me a human being. So um and part of like why I like I've struggled between those two of like don't be attracted. Isn't it nice that you're attracted? Like people find you attractive? Do you like it? Just like it's just always back and forth, and it's never like a middle understanding where I get clarity. And it's those emotions that throw me back and forth that have caused so much emotional distress in my life, oftentimes.
Yeah, and so whether it's, questioning or wondering about being single and will there be someone for me? To look at how we deal with these worldly winds as they come up. Because that's really a big piece of what we're talking about today is when it comes up. And it's not just about, oh, it'll go away. Although that's really the end product here. Why did I spend so much time on that? So being with this, and just inviting us today to continue to look at this, even though I may have read it many, many times, even though I'm only in my 20s or I'm only in my 80s, I've kind of been through all that, to know that regardless, we're going to go until we stop. And that it will always be there to some degree or another. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm going to go on to something else. So
You said, even though I'm in my 20s, so I guess I'll talk on that just a little bit. So growing up, I just got hurt all the time. I was like always in and out of the hospital or having a injury or a major concussion. And it's like I couldn't keep up with people my age. I literally, I couldn't do it. And so it was a lot of physical and emotional pain really early because I was forced to, I had no surgery when I was 12 because I had a major concussion. But then I had to have it 2 more times to refix it. And I remember the third time I was awake and they're like pounding into my face with like a hammer, like just going. And you think, oh, life's supposed to be fun when you're 20. But I've already met my end so many times. So everything in life became so unsatisfactory. And so in a way, it's a blessing. Impermanence actually blessed me to see that this isn't actually what I want. I don't actually want these relationships. I don't actually want all the money in the world. I don't actually, want to be who I thought I wanted to be. So it just like the things that literally I felt like were killing me ended up bringing me to a space that is freeing me. So in a way, impermanence also is freeing. Doesn't just bind, but it actually releases.
and that is the perfect segue. Because it just like anything else, we can grasp hold of impermanence as loss, as something that is, very, very challenging and difficult. And whether it's relationships or injuries or homes, or we can also understand it as freeing. and the path to freedom. The path to freedom. So I wanted to share a little bit of what Buddha Master has spoken of on impermanence. And I kind of dove back into, not that I ever really put it away, is the Dharma of cultivation. And we've all, I think almost all of us have read it, but it's the 8 fundamental right views. And what is the very first view? Impermanence. Impermanence. And I remember the first time I read that, and right after he's introduced that, he moves on to when you finally get to fear impermanence. And I'm thinking, I want impermanence. I don't want to fear. I didn't get it. I didn't get that, why that's an important piece. And I struggled with it and clung with it. I mean, this is years ago. And it was a year later when I went, oh, fearing, if you fear impermanence, you're ready to move on. You're ready to move on. Yeah, please.
When I think about fearing impermanence, I think about thinking beyond this life, considering karma and all the actions that I've taken in this life that I know of, in body, speech, and mind, and all the actions that have preceded this life that I have no idea of, and how they're going to affect my next incarnation. So when I think about fearing impermanence, it helps me to be careful with my body, speech, and mind, because I'm considering beyond just this life.
Mhm. Exactly. So it's really about moving forward. It's about, once we meet impermanence, we begin to fear impermanence, and only then, with that fear, are we willing and actually able to have a mind of impermanence, determined to leave the cycle of birth and death. So it's a part of the process. It's part of us moving through. It's the very first of the 8. And it's there for a reason. Thank you, Pusita. But I think we should just leave that in line.
I have a question. Does the word fear, when it's translated into English, mean the same thing? Like when we as English speakers hear fear, if that makes sense from the translation from the manuscripts, because that's, I guess, because I get what was said, like when you fear, is it permanence or impermanence? Oh yeah, impermanence. When you fear impermanence because of, past lives, that it allows you to just be mindful of like how, like, right speech, right mind, and all that. I guess I'm caught up with the word fear, and where does non-attachment or any of that, or does that even have anything to do with any of it? Does that make sense?
So you're caught with fear because
I would think like you would not, I don't know. I guess my mind is having a challenge wrapping my head around that for some reason.
A teacher is telling us to fear. Should we fear?
Or am I here? But you're not saying fear, like in the sense of like how I typically would fear, but it's like, in the sense of like being mindful of past lives, so therefore I'm more cautious and aware of how I'm living presently.
did you want to speak to that?
I was going to say, to me, this fearing impermanence. I don't like that word fear it. To me, it's respected. To me, that word fear translates to me to respect impermanence. That's just,
So for me, in the same essence, it took a good bit of introspection to recognize and get past the word fear. I was in that space too, where I'm like, fear, okay. Anything else could have been said after that, and it was blah, 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 blah. And then I suddenly understood it in that different dimension too. And for me, I recognize that the way it plays in my life is to the healthy awareness and to make sure that every moment, every day is truly embodied and vested in my practice and not to squander opportunity or my life. That at any moment, like you said, that you're closer to death than the rest of us, but we don't know that. That's an unknown. And in that sense, that's how I see it, is that, so what have I done today to ensure that my karma is stainless as I move forward? So
I think Kadar was.
At the monastery, we study impermanence every day, and we're trying to understand what that means. And if we're fearing it, then we're in the state of samsara. Like samsara is a state. And so like to generate the correct understanding is to place fear in the state that we're in. So impermanence is everywhere all the time. Like even when a Buddha becomes a Buddha, cause and effect is not negated. They're just free from it because they've entered into a state where they're not bound, so they control their birth and death. So impermanence and samsara is actually a state. And so if we fear that, we can leave the state of samsara and go somewhere else. But cause and effect will always be cause and effect. So we're working with our mind and the state of our mind.
Is it done to do? No. So I think this is worthy of more contemplation. It took me a while to get to a different place because I was coming from an ordinary mind around fear. And that meaning, but this is the word that Buddha Master used to get us to move through and to go beyond. Go beyond. So we really want to get to a certain place of moving outside of the birth and death cycle. I mean, ideally, we don't want to keep doing this, coming back in and doing samsara over and over again. And so the work that we're doing now, or that we can do, we're invited to do, offers us a chance to really dig in. And not just do, I'm using the metaphor of the garden now because it's happening right now, but what was it, Friday or Saturday? I forget. Digging in, and there was a weed barrier there. And in order to get down to where it needed to be, you had to go through that. You got to go deeper. That barrier was there to help keep the weeds out. Did it do a good job? Well, maybe, but there's still weeds there. You got to go deeper and deeper. And so the whole effort on my part was to bring us to a place of don't just settle with where we are today. Ask the questions, go deeper, do the study, do the contemplations, get off the cushion and walk into the world and see with new eyes. And even then, as with me, I thought, wow, I'm really getting this. I'm understanding this with the prayogas and experiencing this differently. And that was true. But it was also a not yet. Not yet. You're not there yet. You got ways to go to understand this, to do the prayogas, to experience going in and getting to a place where I could then engage with my yidam in an open and more prepared way. Buddha Master goes on to say, we human beings must die. Our lives are short like a dream. This dream will come to an end very quickly, regardless of where you live, rich or poor, young or old. If you fail the law of cause and effect, it is unavoidable for you to not book a date with Yama. Yama is the king of death, or the hell realms. I'm going to say that again. When I read that, I was like, wow. If you fail the law of cause and effect, it is unavoidable for you to not book a date with Yama. In other words, if you don't get it, Yama's going to be there and he's going to take you. You're not prepared for the paradise or for the other heavenly realms. If you fail the laws, understanding cause and effect. And that Venerables talked a lot about cause and effect. I don't really want to get into it here, but that to me was startling. It's like, yeah, I got, there's no time to lose. I got to keep working this, turning it up, making that soil, adding some nutrition to the soil so that when I plant new seeds, it will take the seeds. They'll be healthy in that rich soil. Buddha Master says we grasp and hold on to things when those things are not worthy of our attachment. And I love that line too. We grasp and hold on to things, we attach to things that aren't worthy of that attachment. Let that sink in for a minute. In this reading, it was from the Discourse on Impermanence. It talks about concept called arising, subsisting, changing, and passing away. Arising, subsisting, changing, and passing away. Arising is giving form that he said composed in the world. So we have been composed in this world, in this form. Subsist means to abide or stay as long as the conditions for abiding are present. So we will be here as long as the conditions are present for us. Change means anything that forms or all conditioned dharmas must deteriorate. So everything's going to deteriorate. Everything. Pass away means to terminate its original form. That's a pretty strong word, terminate. But it's true, right? We're going to terminate. We don't need to sprinkle it with fairy dust here. Pass away means terminate its original form, and the original form indicates the original form that we see right at this moment. All this is form. All this is form. The best use of our time, he goes on to say, is to cultivate ourselves and learn Buddha Dharma. We have this precious life, that we have access to the Dharma. I think you were speaking a little bit to that when you were in your retreat. I'm not there anymore. I've moved on. We've all heard about the flat escalator at the airport. And Buddha Master speaks to that. Getting on the escalator that's flat doesn't go up to the second floor or the third floor. It just carries us across. And that's what we get on. And if we're not aware, if we don't tackle these issues, the impermanence, the understanding of the Buddha Dharma, if we don't not just understand, but dig deep into it, practice it, live it, be guided by it, we'll just keep moving along. And you've all probably been in that elevator or that escalator, and it just goes along. And meanwhile, there are teachers, Buddha Master, Venerable, are saying, wait. There's more to learn. There's more to see. There's more to understand. But we keep moving along. Maybe we stop and look, but we keep moving along. And if we turn to go back, it takes a little work to be on that moving stairway. Turn around, go back, get off to look at it. I mean, the chances are we're going to eventually get to a certain place and we'll be done. We'll be terminated. We'll be done. You understand this precious life. If you understand the Buddha Dharma, most of us here have turned around, pay attention, to study, to learn, to understand it differently. We can easily get blocked by greed and anger and attachment. We can go off that slippery slope to joy, to delight, to rage, happiness, gain, loss, fame, praise, blame, joy, and sorrow. We can go off on that. We can get lost in that. We can't see necessarily when that happens to get past the emotions and the habitual tendencies. And that's where the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha are of great use to us, of great benefit to us. So what's it going to take? We understand it intellectually. We know the language. We know the words. Some are new. Some are not so new. It could be easy to say, oh yeah, I know that, I got that, I can talk to you about that. But it's not about that in the end. It's not about knowing what impermanence means. It's practicing. And it is practice. I know Venerable wants a new word, but I think in some ways it is practice. It takes us to go and take that book and look at the plays and look at what it is to do and do it again and again and again. When I was working in the K-8 school, we had a gym for most little kids, not the big kids. So, but they would be in there. A fourth grader, a sixth grader, shooting baskets, because they were going to be an NBA player. They had to believe it, and they had to practice. And they got pretty good. And then they went outside where it was the real tall basketball hoop. Not yet. But that didn't stop them. They practiced and practiced. And then the coach came in and got a team going. They got the basketball in the hoop, but they didn't have the plays down. So then they had to work more at it and work more at it. And then the day of the game came. The practice was done. It was the real deal here. So for me, it's not getting lost in the practice. Get out and really play the game. And then do the Monday morning quarterbacking and see how we did. See where we excelled, where we grew, and see what still needs to be worked with. So I'm inviting you to consider your thoughts, speech, and actions every day, all day long. Because it does start with the thoughts. And if they're already there, it's going to take work not to speak or act it out. Catch yourself. I'm going to ask us to take a few minutes to reflect here. Where and how and when in the last week, yesterday, this morning, did you experience grasping, holding, greed, anger that led to suffering? And when that happened, when did you recognize and shift your mind? Or did you? Did you catch yourself? Whether it was about yourself or a situation that was happening. How long did it take? How did you know? Did it surprise you that it surfaced? So even though it's Sunday, I'm asking you to do Monday morning quarterbacking. Consider, I'm sure you can't, you don't, I would bet you don't have to go too far back to find a time when that happened. And take a minute and just sit with it. Where and how and when in the last week, yesterday or this morning, did you experience grasping, holding, greed, anger that led to suffering? And when that happened, when did you recognize and shift your mind? Or did you? How long did it take? How did you know? Did it surprise you? And probably as important, if not more important, what are your signs and symptoms when that happens? How do you catch yourself when you are, even if it's before the thought comes? As I said many times, you know, the book is right. The body keeps the score. Body tells us it's a first alert system. Before the thought comes, the body's talking to us. And so this is for your own contemplation. And whatever you have considered just now, take it into the day. Reflect on it some more. So as I get closer to ending here, I came across this other piece on impermanence, and I want to share it with you. At one time or another, everyone loses something. We lose loved ones. We lose our health. We lose our glasses. We lose our socks, or at least one of them. We lose our memories. We lose our money. We lose our keys. We lose our wallets. We lose our car in the parking lot. We lose life itself. We have to come to terms with this reality. Sooner or later, all is lost. We just don't know We just don't always know when it will happen. Loss is a fact of life. Impermanence is everywhere we look. We are all going to suffer our losses. How we deal with those losses is what makes all the difference. It's not that they happen, it's how we manage them, how we take care of ourselves in the midst of those losses. For it is not what happens to us that determines our character, our experience, our karma, and our destiny, but how we relate to what happens. Most of you have heard the 5 contemplations of remembrance. I invite us to consider the last of the 5. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground upon which I stand. And invite us to close with another contemplation of impermanence. Contemplate that all conditional phenomena are like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, a shadow, morning dew, or a flash of lightning. All sentient beings will definitely die. All inanimate things will definitely perish. This principle also applies to my body, which is composed of the 4 great elements: earth, water, fire, air. One should reflect upon this fact that one will have to be separated from one's family and friends one day. That time is pushing one's age forward, that early youth is followed by the robust years of life, which is followed by old age, which is followed by death. One should contemplate how sounds or how flowing water never return after they are gone. One should contemplate how the thoughts and words of this very moment have already become impermanent. One should contemplate how one will come closer and closer to death, how death has no set time to it, how one could go to the next world at any moment simply because one's breathing stops, and how one can take no worldly possessions whatsoever with you to the next world. I am subject to aging. Aging is unavoidable. I'm subject to illness. Illness is unavoidable. I'm subject to death. Death is unavoidable. I will grow different, separate from all that is dear and appealing to me. I am the owner of my actions, born of my actions, related through my actions, and live dependent on my actions. Whatever I do, for good or for ill, to that I will fall heir. Someone want to give the dedication? I wish for all living beings to be free of animosity. I ask for help that I did not have animosity in thought, word, and deed. I ask for all living beings to be free of oppression. Help me to be free from oppressing others in thought, word, and deed. I wish for all living beings to be free of trouble. Help me to be free of causing trouble in thought, word, and deed. May all living beings take care of themselves with ease. And if we have any merit, may it go to all living beings equally in all 6 worlds. And may they increase their fortune and wisdom and always have peace and auspiciousness. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everybody.